I'm about to introduce Fiona Luca. For those of you who haven't had the privilege of having Fiona Luca in your school, please have a think about where you might be able to fit some of Fiona's work now in your curriculum. Fiona, you ready to go?
I am. Can you see my screen?
We can. How are you?
I'm really well. How are you?
Good. So going from one of my favourite practitioners to another of my favourite practitioners, I'm about to introduce Fiona, who's going to lead on, I think, really nicely from the work that Zoe's talked about this morning. So welcome, Fiona. I'm going to let you jump straight in.
Thanks, Lee. And thanks, Zoe. Good morning, everybody. Lovely to be here. I've done the mad drop off at a next door neighbour for my two children ready for school. And I forgot it was bike head. So it was an extra mad rush this morning. But here we are. And it was nice to jump in the last few minutes of Zoe's presentation and note the parallels and the way in which I might potentially overlap some of the work that she's delivered and resource she's delivered, but perhaps in a different way and with a different method. So it's always nice to hear the same information delivered in two different ways to see if it lands. So as Lee mentioned, my name's Fiona Luca, and I've got the pleasure of facilitating multiple programs through BATForce and independently. Here is kind of all my letters and numbers and things that have got me to this point. But to be really honest, what brings me here and the reason why I present maybe with such passion and intention is because I spend all day, every day in the schools working with these young people. And this year I've had the privilege of working with probably up to 25 schools, both through BATForce and independently, and hundreds of young people aged from grade prep right through to year 12. And the work that I'm delivering is making a difference. But what's incredible is that I'm learning more and more every day about what these young people need in these school environments and how we can think holistically to support them. And that's the presentation that I'll deliver today. So my work comes from my training as a dancer and dance teacher for many years, yoga and Pilates as well, mind-body therapist, positive psych space, mental health advocate, all of the above. So this is where I roll from. So moving straight forward, I'm just going to make sure I can. Okay, so why I do what I do and what I do. So I'm fortunate enough to get up to 22 people in one room for an hour in each school every week. And it's all the young people that demonstrate some or all of these things. Lack of meaning and purpose and motivation in their lives. They're disengaged or they're refusing school, full stop. They obviously have a trauma background or a formal diagnosis. There's behavioural issues, and I use that in quotation marks. They're feeling disconnected from their self and others. They have social challenges, learning difficulties, and an inability to self-regulate. And in a nutshell, what they are human beings having a human experience. And that's what I talk to. I started yesterday a program with some grade prep students at a local school. It's a 4-week project. And I had to summarize what I do in such a simplified way. And this is what I said to the 6-year-olds. I said, the work that I do helps your head and your body and your heart all have a conversation and talk nicely to each other. And that's the approach that I take, because when I go with one method, I'm missing out on two other really integral parts of the human being that they are. And so when I get these young people in this room and I come with all of these reports and all of these teachers telling me what's going on from them, I kind of stop and I pause and I see them. And it's from that space of connecting with them that I'm then able to do the work that I do and make a bit of an impact. So if there's a crux for all of today's PD that I'm delivering, it's connection. Because it's probably the most important thing that I do with these young people and the most important outcome that I get. When they feel connected, they feel safe. And when they feel safe, oh my goodness, doors open and they become the human beings they are on the inside. So this is where I operate from. So if we move from here, and I go straight into a resource that I'm sure Zoe has elaborated on, that I wish I could jump on the board of the Department of Education and encourage them to implement it as a subject in every single school. It would be helping our young people and our teachers understand the autonomic nervous system and be able to breathe properly. And a resource that I hand out to every young child, even if they're a grade prep, is a picture of the human body and what happens to the human body when the nervous system is not coping so well. Physiologically, what happens to them? So the autonomic nervous system regulates certain body processes such as blood pressure and the rate of breathing, and it works automatically without a person's conscious effort. And the two that I talk to specifically, both through my breathing and my mindfulness and my yoga, is the parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest, which Zoe mentioned is the learning space, where they have the ability to learn. And physiologically, what is happening to us when we are in our rest and digest is our heartbeat is slower, our body is calm, the mind is steady, and obviously there's a whole host of other incredible benefits. Now, the reason why it's paramount that our young people and ourselves understand what it feels like to be in this rest and digest state is so then we become familiar with it and know when we're then not in it. And if our young person recognize I'm in a good state right now, then they're going to have the confidence to then learn and grow and immerse themselves in things in that state. When they start to feel their body moving to a different state, that's a little light bulb moment for them to then seek support or do something different. And that's what then takes us to the sympathetic nervous system, which is our flight or fright. So I'm sure you've all had the experience of anxiety, as have I, or overwhelm, feeling out of control. Our heartbeat increases, our stomach muscles contract and tighten. We have these rapid involuntary responses to dangerous or stressful situations, and rapid involuntary responses. So this is where your young people are moving into the fight or flight or freeze or fawn situations without any intention. It's happening automatically. And so a beautiful teacher in a PD I delivered yesterday afternoon said to me, Fiona, if you could encourage me to implement anything in the first 5 minutes of my day as of tomorrow morning, what would it be? And I said, 5 belly breaths and connect. She was like, what? I'm like, 5 belly breaths every single day and connect. Find a little window of opportunity to connect. And that's going to set your young people up for success right from the first foot forward. So when we talk about conscious breathing to support the parasympathetic nervous, we're talking about belly breathing. And over time, belly breathing can in fact act as a buffer to resist your fight or flight response so you're not as sensitive to stress triggers. Now, the challenge here is that when we see somebody in overwhelm, in anxiety, in out of control behavior, we say, it's okay, calm down, breathe. Wrong time. Wrong time. You can't access that beautiful deep belly breath when you've already crossed the threshold of being over in your sympathetic nervous system. Yeah. So what we need to do is we need to, in fact, be breathing all of the time so that we're stimulating our vagus nerve, so that we're building the capacity to have this vagus nerve, have this incredible instrument kick in when we need it, when we are about to approach overwhelm. So some really, really basic breathing techniques that I teach in the classroom and that many teachers adopt is something as simple as square breathing. I'm sure most of you already know it, but it's a beautiful reminder. We inhale breath, usually for a count of 4 or 3. Through the nose, we pause for the same duration, we exhale for the 3 or 4, and then we pause for the same duration. Now, I just want to put a little reminder there with the square breathing. That pause on the top and the bottom can often sometimes be triggering for a young person because they can't access their breath, and if they find that they get anxiety quite a lot, that might be a trigger moment. So just be mindful of that. But just to encourage belly breathing right now, I'm really all about the practical. Can you all just do something for me and sit back in your seats and uncross your legs? Because I think that as Zoe mentioned, we need to co-regulate with our young people. So if you don't know how to belly breathe, it's really hard to teach belly breathing. So if everyone can uncross their legs and just sit back in their seat, and then press their palms on their diaphragm. If you don't know what that is, it's that pillowy, cushy bit in between your rib cage. It feels quite uncomfortable to press on it. So sit back in your seats, relax your face, drop your shoulders. And what we're aiming to do is inhale through the nose and expand our diaphragm so it blows up like a balloon. And then exhale through the nose or mouth if that's more comfortable, and deflate the diaphragm so it returns back toward the spine. So we're going to try 3 altogether. And if anything, it's just going to relax you before you start your Tuesday, right? So hands on the diaphragm, through the nose, soften the eyes if it feels safe. Take a big breath in. And then exhale, belly drops back toward the spine. So the intention is not to move any other part of the body. Take a big breath in, belly expands. Slow, steady breath out. One more together. Take a big breath in. Slow, steady breath out. Nice work. So neuroscience tells us that we need 5 or so belly breaths in order for the nervous system to start to down regulate. This is where finger breathing is really wonderful, because it's 5 breaths. We inhale through one finger, exhale through the other finger. Now, these are tiny little things that I'm sure you all know, but what these PDs do is they give you that gentle reminder to do it, to literally do it, because 5 belly breaths every single day can support your young person in being able to manage or find a little bit of space or window between their stress response next time they feel out of control. Rainbow breathing. I love this one. I've done it with my children. We have a rainbow up in my house. And sometimes when we're feeling a little bit out of control, we just inhale one of the lower arcs and then exhale the other arc. And then we move up the arc and do it the same way. Some classroom teachers get out big butcher's paper and we all draw rainbows in the classrooms, and then we breathe together with our rainbow breathing. And for those older students, because I certainly can't do rainbow breathing when I'm working with my year 9s, it's just literally the mindful moment of conscious breathing to stimulate that vagus nerve. So as that beautiful young teacher asked me yesterday, Fiona, what's one thing I can do as of tomorrow morning? 5 belly breaths, mate. Do 5 belly breaths every single morning. Get your children used to feeling what it feels like to breathe. And by purely doing that, you're offering them a 45-second window of mindfulness, because their focus and intent in that moment is just to breathe, which is shutting down their senses and drawing their focus into one moment. If you then deliver resource from that moment, you've already got their undivided attention, because they've just focused in on their breathing. And what was interesting yesterday when I started with these grade preps is I always find it really interesting when I go into a new space and teachers, they kind of, maybe they jump into their ego a little bit and they want to make sure that the students are really well behaved for Fiona, and I remind them it's actually not about that. I've seen it all, don't worry about that. And so we're lying down in meditation, 22 6-year-olds, and one's fidgeting and one's getting up and one's scratching, and they're all shushing them, shh, shh, stay still, stay still. And I whisper into all the teachers' ears, let them be. Just let them be. I promise you that if you just give them permission to listen to their bodies, they're going to slowly but surely regulate all by themselves. And hand on my heart, absolute hand on my heart, all of them, after 3 or 4 minutes, they start to settle. I play obviously the right music when I use the calming voice and I body scan them, but they all start to settle, and they do that all by themselves. So what we need to do is, when we're doing something like conscious breathing, don't intervene too much. Let them navigate them. Let them feel themselves how they can actually regulate their bodies, because that's what we're ultimately trying to do, right? Empower them to be able to regulate for themselves and not have to rely on everything else around them. So that's something as simple as that. Moving forward, anxiety and mindfulness. Now, as I said, I get the whole host of young people in the one room. They're diagnosed with all of the wonderful things. They've got behavioral problems. They're disengaged. They're not coming to school. And lots of the conversations I have with my young people is around anxiety. So much of it. Most of them have experienced it, if not deal with it every single day. And the way that I talk to anxiety in these classrooms is helping them understand that it's not a personality type. It's in fact a physiological response. So it's what we are feeling and experiencing in the body when the brain isn't coping. When our brain is feeling unsafe, it prepares us for a physiological state of fight or flight. So there's our sympathetic nervous system to protect ourselves. And an anxious response, as I already mentioned, can represent as freeze, flight, fight, and fawn. And fawn is a really interesting one, guys. I, in fact, have an 8-year-old that's already adopted the kind of people-pleasing mentality way back in her life, perhaps when she had her own experiences. And I feel like there's often the young people that we need to watch out for. It's the fawning. It's the young people that are really trying to avoid confrontation or really suppressing their emotional experience in order to people-please and get external validation, which then later ends up trying to be an attempt for control and doing it in other more sabotaging ways. I love this quote from Forsyth and Effort. It's from the Positive Psych space, and it tells us that anxiety is actually inevitable. It is the struggle with the emotional pain associated with it that can actually have negative effects. Because we all want to have a sympathetic nervous system. We all want to have a fight or flight response. Because I tell you what, if I'm walking the streets of Geelong at 9:30 on a Saturday night on my own, I want to be able to have a sympathetic nervous system that can kick in if I'm feeling unsafe and need to get out of a sticky situation. So it's important to recognize that it's in fact the pain associated with this anxiety that creates the struggle inside of us. So mindfulness, it's a hub word. We all know about it. We all try to implement it in our classrooms, but what is it? The definition that I really lean into and wholeheartedly believe in is that mindfulness, or being mindful, is being present, fully immersed and engaged in the moment. But this is the key bit: without interpretation, judgment, or distraction. So without interpretation or judgment. So it's that mindful pause, that moment of hesitation between stimulus and response, which often stops automatic and adverse fast reactions. So if we can encourage mindfulness in the classrooms, we're helping our young people create a little gap between what they're seeing, what they're externally experiencing, and what they're internally experiencing. I'll say that again. If we can create mindfulness or a moment of pause in the classrooms, we can create space between what they're externally experiencing and what they're internally experiencing. And with that window, there's opportunity for them to have perspective, be in choice, regulate, seek support, do something different. So what we're trying to do through conscious breathing, through mindfulness, through meditation, is widen the gap between stimulus and response. So we've got room here to do something different or feel a bit more in control. So there's that witness state, right, where we get a chance to step back and view the situation more objectively. Nod at me if you can relate to the reality of being in a confronting situation, right? It just lands on your lap. It might be a conversation. It might be a challenging situation with the young child, and you go straight to reactivity. Have you all been there? You know, something confronting happens. You get the message or the email from that triggering person, and you go straight to reactivity. What we're trying to encourage is not to go straight to reactivity, rather. We're trying to create that space in between. So how do we do that? How do we encourage mindfulness? Think about the senses. I'm sure Zoe already went here. You know, mindful listening. What can I hear? One of the most beautiful workshops I do with young people is finding a really epic piece of music, lying them down on their yoga mats and asking them to listen. Listen to the strum of the guitar. Listen to the lyrics in the song. What do they feel? How do they feel? How do they resonate? Are they nostalgic? How does the music make you feel? What's the melody like? What's the quiet instruments that aren't prominent that you can hear? And then I stop the piece of music and we don't talk. We stay in the zone. I replay it, and then they get their journals out and they write what they heard. And they're just completely engulfed and engaged and jumping into that track for 3 minutes. Mindful listening, mindful looking. What can I see around me? Yeah, the young people walk in from recess or lunch and they're a bit dysregulated. Lots of stimulus has happened in the yard. Walk them into your classrooms. Ask everybody to be quiet and just start walking around the space, and then say freeze, look up, look right, look left. What can you see? Hone in specifically on that sight sense. Mindful feeling. How does my body feel right now? You know, I do body scans nearly every session with my young people. What does the space in between your eyebrows feel like? What do your earlobes feel like right now? If I asked you to shrug your shoulders up really, really tight and squeeze everything together and then release, what does it feel like when you release? And so this is this interoception. It's trying to connect with what the feeling is of the body. And simple movement to feel the body moving. There's a really beautiful standing grounding exercise that I did it with the preppies yesterday, where we just stand feet parallel. And we close our eyes and we imagine a bubble in our belly. So that's our center of gravity. And then with our eyes closed, we just sway gently from the right and to the left. But we try and keep this bubble in the middle. You know, we sway right and left, and then we stop and we open our eyes and we feel the bubble. We close our eyes again and we sway forward and back. And this is them understanding that they've got this central point of gravity, this home base. And even if we get a little rocked right or left or forward or back, we can still come back to home base. It's still there. It's really wonderful. And then focusing on a calming word or affirmation. So I am safe, I am okay, I am supported, I am loved, I feel calm. So often what schools do is they create a workshop around this where they create a classroom mantra. So they whiteboard everyone's comments on what it feels like when they feel safe in their body or in their mind, when they use all these adjectives, and then from there they create a sentence or a mantra, a classroom one that they can then repeat 3 or 4 times over and over to bring everybody back into their bodies. And that's often really, really positive, and it's a classroom experience that they can have. And then I move into predictability and the importance of predictability. So our brain predicts. That's how we learn, and a lack of predictability can make it difficult to function or feel safe, as we have an overwhelming urge to know what's going to happen next and in the future. So dopamine, a neurotransmitter or a happy hormone, is in fact released when we get our predictions right. We had a laugh in the PD yesterday because I was like, who's a list person in here? And some sheepish hands goes up, and I'm like, who writes the list? But the first thing on the list is something you've already done, and you can tick it off and be like, yeah, nailed it already. And we get that little hit of accomplishment or achievement. So predictability is so important in the classrooms in our life. And if our predictions never eventuate, we tend to experience anxiety, which then moves us into survival mode and out of fear. So really incredible to incorporate predictability post recess or lunch or break times, because so much unpredictability happens out in the yard. So many conversations that they don't expect, or balls flying around, or so much stimulus. So if you can come back into the classroom, and this especially is wonderful for in the younger generations or the younger age brackets, and create a sense of predictability, whether you read the same story, or you're playing the same piece of music, or you're revising that mantra that I spoke about, and that's just to regulate the brain and the mind again, and then bring them back into their bodies before you then introduce something new to them. So what we're doing is just finding these teeny tiny little windows and pockets of opportunity to implement these beautiful resources to then regulate the body, the nervous system, so they can go back and return back into that learning space. So ensuring our classroom offers opportunity for successful predictability. Some of my suggestions would be simple, repetitive activities. Somewhere safe to go when feeling heightened. I'm sure some of you in your classrooms or in your schools have a hub or a little corner space where they can go to, a little calm corner that's familiar. Return back to a familiar concept or narrative, so clapping or well-known repetitive music. Hopscotch is amazing. That repetition of the body on the numbers, counting, open, jump, open, twist. Yeah, chalk out the hopscotch in your concrete at the front of your classroom. Skipping is also amazing. When my child was in grade 1, my eldest child, on a Friday afternoon, without fail, final session, you'd go to collect them and they would all be out there skipping. And their teacher would say to us, "You're welcome," when we would pick up our children for the weekend. That repetition of skipping is wonderful. And movements that encourage flow and repetitive structure. Familiar games and books. So if there's any movers amongst you, or people that feel comfortable to encourage that, a familiar piece of music. Yesterday in our workshop, I encouraged all our students to isolate different parts of their body. So we started with our head and the movements that our head can do, and then our fingers. What shapes can our fingers make? Can they wave like the ocean? Can they twinkle like raindrops? And then we move to our elbows. How can they move? And it's just this flowy, repetitive movement that, lo and behold, has this beautiful calming effect on their entire nervous system. It's really powerful. Okay, moving on. So this is the work that I do, the holistic approach. So yes, I do implement yoga in nearly all of my school programs. And it's funny, the school that I delivered the PD to yesterday, I am 6 weeks into a program. We've not done a yoga pose yet. I roll out the mats every week. We meditate, but we haven't done a yoga pose yet. They're terrified. They're absolutely terrified of the yoga mats and of moving their body, all 13 of them. And I've read the room, obviously, and I'm really gently easing into it. And I'm hoping by, week 8 that I can get there. But They walked into the room the first week and they saw the yoga mats, and nearly 3 of them walked out. They were absolutely terrified, and it just reiterated to me, oh my goodness, how scary is it for a 12-year-old to connect to their body already? You know, this is not uncommon when we're talking to middle-aged women, you know, but we're already talking to a 12-year-old that's terrified to go on a yoga mat and just try the triangle shape of a downward facing dog. So why do I implement yoga in my programs? Well, I'm a mind body therapist, and I'm a body human being, and I've used my body as an intervention for well-being my whole entire life without even knowing. And my body talks to me, all of our bodies talk to me, and they are an intervention. They have messages and wisdom that we need to listen to. And if we don't connect to it, if we don't trust it, then we're going to continue to move forward in our life and reject it. And the scary thing is, and I mentioned this yesterday in that PD, is that what I see from grade 6 to year 7 and 8, and the way these young people can disconnect from themselves and disengage from their society and the education system is so scary. And one of the grade 6 teachers yesterday put his hand up and said, he has a daughter that he taught in grade 6. So she has a lot of friends that she's now moved on to high school with, of young people that he taught. And he said, and he's horrified learning about what is going on with some of these year 8 students. His daughter's now year 8, that he taught in grade 6, and how they're disengaged. One of them expelled multiple times. When he taught them in grade 6, he saw the promise, he saw the potential, he nurtured them up to that grade 6 point. And unfortunately, in that new environment, there just wasn't the same support system in order for him to feel seen. So he's now gone on a very different trajectory. You know, and this is him rejecting himself or rejecting his body. And so the work that I do is to help these young people feel safe in their bodies, trust their bodies, move their bodies in a way so that then hopefully as they progress forward, they'd make decisions that aren't against their bodies or in rejection to their bodies, but for their bodies. So why is yoga so powerful? And Zoe's right, it's not for everybody. It's absolutely not for everybody. It is quite a daunting or scary concept. And for most PDs that I do, I ask the teachers in the room, has anyone tried yoga? And there's minimal hands up. But what it does do for us is it can create mental clarity and calmness. It increases body awareness. It relaxes the mind, centers attention, and sharpens concentration. So something as simple as holding a pose that might feel a bit foreign, the beauty in that is starting to build a bit of resilience, right? Being comfortable with the uncomfortable, even if it's just a teeny tiny little bit. Standing in tree pose, eyes focusing on one point for 30 seconds, honing in our senses and drawing attention just to one thing, increasing focus and concentration and attention span. All these things that we want our young people to be able to access in order to learn in our classrooms. Creative self-expression. Our creativity is one of our mother tongues. When we are given opportunities to connect with our creativity, we're actually expressing from a place of authenticity. There's our self-identity piece. It's our essence. And this makes us feel safe. Our students want to speak, share, and be seen in a multitude of ways. So please offer opportunities for this. You know, I often jump on the phone to Lee after running a program or having a challenging classroom. And I'm like, Lee, they just want to talk. And she's like, I know, mate, they just want to talk. And this is what I spend most of my time doing. Like, department is so wonderful and funds these programs, and we have all these intentions and we deliver, and I have all this resource that I deliver, but at the end of the day, these young people just want to talk and connect. So as that teacher said to me, what's one thing I can do tomorrow for 5 minutes? Breathe and connect. Breathe and connect. Ask that beautiful student that you don't know much about what their favorite flavor ice cream is. You know, ask them how they did on that netball game on the weekend. It's just those little moments where we give them an opportunity to express a part of themselves above and beyond being a student in your school, because there's so many parts to who they are. They're not just a student, you know, and if we can start to see all those different beautiful parts of who they are, they'll feel seen. When they feel seen, they feel safe. And when they feel safe, they'll engage, they'll trust you. Feel the feels. I am an avid, passionate human being about allowing human beings to feel emotions and express emotions and go through the whole sphere of what it feels to have an emotion and to honor that emotion. So I really, really believe that emotion is energy in motion. It needs to be felt, expressed, heard, and moved. And in fact, if we stifle or restrict this process, the emotion gets blocked or suppressed, which then puts physical stress on the body, leading to feelings of detachment, apathy, and a lack of interest in activities that once brought us joy. So this emotional suppression or blockage can in fact stifle, stop meaning and purpose. Yeah, it's heavy, it's weighted. I'm sure you can all relate to feeling overwhelmed by an emotion or not giving yourself permission to feel it. You push the anger back in that jar, you know, the next angry thing arises, you push him in there as well, and it compounds. And then lo and behold, the teeniest, tiniest straw that broke the camel's back sends you in a big, loud frenzy. Yeah, so if we don't allow these emotions to flow and have an experience, then they're just going to compound and we're going to end up having these really big explosive outbursts and fight and flight responses that are uncontrollable or harmful. So connection to self and others, finally, it's those beautiful pieces of who am I, who are you? Self-awareness is probably the biggest key player in all of the material of my programs. It's the first module that I address in every single school. And in that first session, when I get a handful of students, I do rapid fire questions with them and I ask them all the wonderful questions, you know, like, what do you love? What do you care about? What lights you up? What matters to you? What makes you different? Where do you go to feel safe? You know, and they look at me like I'm mad. And I was like, you attend this space every day, hours on end. You're going to do that for the next 10 years. And you learn so much stuff. But how much time do you spend learning about yourself? Really learning about yourself. So this is where we need to encourage connection between us and our young people and invite them to connect back with themselves. So who am I? Who are you? What matters to me? What matters to you? What lights me up? What lights you up? So these are beautiful questions you can invite your young people to ask themselves, and you can ask your young people back at them. You know, even just write these down or take a screenshot of these. I know you're going to get the slides anyway, and pop them up as a regular on your whiteboard. So they walk into the room, you know, and it's the first question you ask on a Monday morning to Joey in the back right corner. Hey, Joey, what lights you up? What lights you up? Hey, Sarah, what really matters to you? Imagine if you started your Monday morning like that. You know, yesterday I said to the grade preppies, hey guys, can I ask you a question? Yeah. I'm like, how's your heart today? Looked at me, you know, silly, happy, sad because I didn't want to leave mum, you know, and suddenly they start talking about what's going on for them, you know, and they feel safe and they etch in closer and closer. And by the end, they're all hugging me and don't want to let me go, you know, and it's just like, it's those little moments of how can we build connection. And I love this. I see you, I hear you, I value you, I accept you, and I protect you. And finally, it's Einstein's beautiful quote. I never teach my pupils. I only provide the conditions in which they can learn. And I love this. I love this. And I was saying to the teachers yesterday, I'm lucky. I get the good job. I don't have to report back to the Department of Education and make sure my grade 2 students pass all the curriculum outcomes. You know, I can just hang out with them and connect with them and teach them some cool stuff to empower them. You guys have the huge feat of having to tick all the boxes and do all the things as well. And maybe if you take anything from today's presentation, it's just where can you find those little windows of opportunity to really see your young people and connect with your young people, and also understand what their nervous system does or how they cope or don't cope in situations that make them feel unsafe, and create environments that can support an opportunity to feel safe and connected, but also give them permission to have a response and give and honor that response and be able to respond to their response if they're not feeling so great. And this beautiful definition of human connection is my number one, and it's a sense of closeness and belongingness a person can experience when having supportive relationship with those around them. And I deliver this PD right at the end of a school year, and I said to the staff yesterday, this is opportunistic in a way, but also, not so much in another way, because you guys are full up. You've had a whole year of having to co-regulate and teach and work with your young people, and to actually onboard new resource now it's a tough feat. And maybe if you spend the next 5 or 6 weeks of your final school year just really building connection as you wrap up, especially for those grade sixes transitioning into their year 7 and high school journey. I think it would be really powerful. So the work that I do is through 2 avenues. I'm Talking Youth. That's the company that delivers and runs all of these school programs all over our region and beyond. And there's my website and my social handle. And then I also have a private practice, which is Move with Fiona, which is all my movement modalities and my one-on-one client work. And there's my handles and website there too. And I feel very grateful to do the work that I do in all the schools and connect with the young people. And my hat goes off to all of the incredible teachers out there that have been slogging hard and connecting with the students every single day. You guys are doing a great job. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Fiona. I'm going to put Zoe and Fiona on the spot really quickly, and I appreciate, really mindful, some people do have to run off to the classroom. As practitioners, but also as parents of primary age children, and I'll give you some thinking time for this, what is one thing you would love schools to be able to do for your kids right now? So if there was one thing that you could add into the school day, being mindful that schools are ridiculously busy, what is that one thing as a parent that's important to you as a parent?
Thanks, Zoe. I think it's back to maybe the comment or feedback I gave that teacher yesterday. It's to support young people in understanding their nervous system and how there's so many little tools and tricks that they can implement to make them feel a little safer or a little more in control in that moment. So breathing would be paramount, introducing mindfulness and allowing them to creatively explore their bodies. When I was doing this activity with the preppies yesterday, I could really see the teachers felt quite uncomfortable when I was inviting everybody to be silly and crazy and all that sort of stuff. So it's that creative exploration of the body, because I really feel like if they can do that, then they're going to have a little bit more confidence to then trust and listen to it moving forward.
Yep. Zoe?
Yeah, I think I agree. And I definitely more time, or even just more brief periods for connection, and connection that draws on your body cues for emotional regulation and dysregulation. So talking about our autonomic nervous system, but also around what that means in your body. So, well, like the butterflies, what does that mean? The sensation of needing to go to the toilet, or feeling too hot, or feeling uncomfortable, or, flipping your lid. I mean, I do find it fascinating that we don't ever teach emotional regulation or any kind of regulation. No science around the autonomic nervous system to schools and to kids, yet we expect them to know how to regulate. So, I mean, I have these conversations with my kids every day, and they can tell me when they feel different things because they have the language and the experience of doing that. But I'd love to see it at school. But I mean, I don't know, like as Fiona said, you guys are just so stretched, and you're all doing an amazing job to get through your curriculums. But that would be my one thing, I reckon.
Yeah, and Zoe, I think a really simple starting point for that is actually modeling it in the classroom. That right now I feel this, and starting to model that language. If they're not getting, these kids aren't getting this at home, how can we model that sort of stuff in the classroom? And yeah, it's a bit by bit. Hey, I'm really mindful that your students are starting to come into the classroom. I really want to thank Zoe and Fiona for going on the BATPack journey with us. This has been amazing. Um, you please put your school name in the chat so we know where you're from. You'll be receiving some stuff from information from us very soon. And let us know what you want to know more about next year. If we're going to run more PDs, we'd love to be guided by you as to where you want to go with this. Big thank you, and I don't thank them enough, to Naomi and Kylie for the work they do. And I know, Fiona, you and Zoe have both had dealings with these. They're the heart of this program at BATForce, and we really acknowledge the hard work they do. I'm going to jump off because I'm actually sitting on an island now, and there are turtles out there that need to be snorkeled with. So I'm going to jump off now and go snorkeling and be a bit mindful for a while. And I'm going to let you get into class, and hopefully we'll be back in your schools presenting next year. So we're taking bookings for workshops now. Catch up with us. Let us know what you need in your school. And hey, have a great day, and don't forget your 5 breaths as soon as you walk in your classroom. Take care, everyone.